So just to say, I'm just so delighted to welcome Satya Sriram to the concept of reinventing, because break the bias in today's International Women's Day has to be done by the woman reinventing herself every time. And for that, Satya is the best example. She's been a McKinsey business consultant. She went on to becoming a leader in a media group house like the Hindu. And now she is the CEO of Preventive Healthcare at the Apollo Hospital Group. Satya, tell us about how you've reinvented yourself.
Firstly, thank you so much, Ranjini, for having me here. Very kind introduction, and I look forward to engaging with this audience. Reinvention. When I think about that word, essentially, we are reinventing ourselves every day because it's essentially how we see the world, right? What frame we see the world from. And that is based on the experiences that we're having every single day. But I think today you also mean about the major transitions and major reinventions that one has had to do.
Exactly.
I've actually been a scientist first, then a business consultant, then worked in a media company, and now preventive health. I also see the transition as to being a mother as a reinvention for myself and across geographies. I lived in Singapore, the US, and then India. And at each time I had to actually assess what are my priorities at that time in my life? What are the opportunities that are present in the context that I am? And therefore, what's the best possible match?
So let's talk about that, but maybe I can share a few champion woman truths and we can both speak to stories about it. What do you think?
Sounds good, but what are champion woman truths, Ranjini?
Oh, okay. So we have an app and a book called Champion Woman Truths. And the whole thing about Champion Woman is we have these little truths, which are nugget-sized, bite-sized 2-minute learnings, both in the app, which is an Android form right now on Google Play Store, completely free, where there are lots of role models like you that have given knowledge and wisdom and life experience into it. Also, this book, Satya, which has 52 stories to journal away based on 52 women's real life truths and life mantras. So I'm hoping that we can flash a few champion woman truths onto the screen for our dear viewers. And though we'll go off to the side, we'll still be sitting there and looking at you. And let's just start with the first one there. Satya, would you care to read it?
Yes. Being comfortable with who you are is the ultimate sign of success. Can you give us an example of what that means, Ranjini?
Sure. So see now today I'm wearing, I don't know if you can see this clearly, I'm wearing a sari with a Tamil script on it. I had to have this embroidered onto my, literally wearing my culture on my sleeve, even when I went to serve at the Women's Leadership Board at Harvard. The point is, when you try to work with the global scenario, which was my job as a relocation and cross-cultural entrepreneur, and serving on the Women's Board at Harvard, everybody looks different from you, maybe speaks differently, but at the core, we are the same. So I had to learn to become comfortable and be authentic with who I was and not try to become somebody else. And I think that's what I achieved, because this is a 20-year-old sari and I still wear my culture on my sleeve. So I'm really talking about telling our audience that just as I was comfortable, no matter which culture or country or people I was interacting with, can you have a sense of comfort always? Going back home, be comfortable with your home situation. Being with friends, be comfortable with who you are. Being at work, be comfortable with who you are. That really is success. You know why, Satya? Because your net worth soars with your self-worth. Your self-worth keeps soaring, right?
Very interesting. Very interesting.
That's what I had as my truth.
Interesting.
You have another one? Let's try another one for you.
All right.
Only if you ask, you receive, Satya. What do you think? Tell me a story about that.
Only if you ask, you receive. Oh, all the time. All right. So I guess there was a time where at the Hindu, I was leading strategy and we just finished a 5-year strategy plan. And there was one area that we felt that we must invest, and it was digital subscription, subscription for our digital products. That is, people pay for it. It was very new. It was way back in 2015. And at a time when nobody believed that Indians would pay for content online. Today we do it with Amazon, Netflix. And at that time, seeing what New York Times had done in the West, I was very inspired. But I was only leading strategy. So I would I would be able to work with the board and tell them what to do. But the how to do it and actually implementing it would be the digital head's job, who had many other priorities. And therefore, said we'd get to it. I raised my hand and asked my boss at that time if I would have the opportunity to actually do this and build this out. And when the time was right, and when the digital head had the mind space, we would hand it over. And I am grateful to my boss for having agreed. And today, building on that foundation, The Hindu is the leading digital subscription product that is out there in the country, right? So only if you ask, will you receive.
For yourself and for the organization. That's the beauty in what you're saying, Satya. You've left a legacy and you've also got your maximum potential achieved. And this is how it is at home too, right? If you need help in the kitchen, ask. If you need a raise, ask. If you need more help in getting some job done, please ask. Ask politely, but ask. That's fabulous. So at every one of these truths, and the next truth will come up now, I just want to say there is a little QR code, and that code actually will take you directly to our app. And maybe you can think about using this app as your daily coach for personal well-being and professional success. So let's try the next truth. Go ahead, Satya.
Placing your wallet in someone else's hand has to be a conscious decision. Tell me more, Ranjini.
Yes, we women earn and then we don't take care of investment, isn't it? So many times. We don't take care of our finances. We're happy to hand it off to somebody else. But I'm saying let's make a conscious decision of that. So even if it is a trustworthy spouse or a parent that is investing your money, please be aware of where it is. Trust that source, of course, but please increase your own financial knowledge because you never know what tomorrow holds for you, right? You have to be on your own again. You have to learn where your investments are. You have to know how it is growing. And you don't have to have this sense of limitedness. You can have a sense of plenty if you know where your money is lying. You know, I used to have a friend, her called Sheila, and she'd given all her money and investment to her spouse. And the thing is, he was so strict about looking after her money and helping her, he thought, that she couldn't even spend things on things that she wanted. So she began to have a scarcity feeling in her mind, which is a sad way to live, isn't it? Then it took her some time to speak out and say, I need to know where it is and I need to be able to have the freedom to spend. So that's what I mean. Women, take finance seriously. Take earning into your hands, but also enjoy that earning with freedom.
Yes, that's an interesting one. It is a lot of work though, but I guess we owe it to ourselves.
Do you do it, Satya? Do you know how to?
Well, I don't do investments myself, but I do know where all the money is and I do get updates on what's happening. So I guess it is halfway there.
Fabulous, fabulous. So one more truth, okay?
One
more truth. Let's try that. So in all these truths, these are not just sayings, they're actually people's lives. In fact, in our journal, there are real stories where we've used their stories to be able to have you journal on the other half of the page and start your own self-transformation. So let me say this one for you, Satya. We get more of what we tolerate. Do you agree?
Yes, we get more of what we tolerate. Interesting. I think as women, we actually lead 2 lives or have 2 jobs. One where you're paid in money and the other one where you're paid in love. You know, there's an interesting article I was reading by Mckinsey around how COVID impacted gender parity. And they say that about 80 to 90% of the unpaid care work in South Asia is actually handled by women. And that is a story of many of our lives.
Oh.
But how's that related to we get more of what we tolerate?
Yeah.
So I feel like for a long, long time, I tolerated not having my me time. And what I mean by that is every part of my family wants a piece of me.
Yeah.
That is part of my job, and they have every right to expect that. But I am exhausted and tired, and depleting my energy is something I tolerated for a very long time. And the more you give on this one, I guess the more anyone will take.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so it took me a while, but then I decided that I would actually create a little bit of my time. And this is to replenish my energy, right? Replenish my energy so that I would have more to give. And so every evening, as soon as I walk through the door after a long day of work, I take my 5 minutes to wash my face, to just be by myself, 5 minutes and no more. But that's enough to replenish my energy store. I learn dance now every Sunday. As an adult, I have a teacher who's invested in me. But every Sunday, it's my 1 hour, 1.5 hours to dance. It's my time. So it's little bits and pieces. But I do think that in this context, we get more of what we tolerate. But we should also, the minute I asked for my own time, my family was there and supportive.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, Satya. It's so important. In fact, in our app and in our courses, we always give 10 minutes of silence and me time as a must-have, as oxygen for your life. And you should take it for yourself, because the moment you start feeling guilty about taking time for yourself, that's when you're not feeling self-worth and success. So if you tolerate people speaking to you in a particular way, they will speak to you in that same way going forward too. So whether it's at work, whether it's at home, please politely ask for what you need and change what you will tolerate. And I think it helps a lot, right? And the last truth that I wanted to just quickly ask you is, you are the best judge of what you can and should be. And in fact, in this particular quote, that QR code will take you directly to the app that we have, where a beautiful story is told by a leading woman that I've written about. And then there's a self-transformation. But I want to hear your story. How did you become the best judge of what you can and should be?
I guess we all know ourselves the best, while the people around us feel like they know what we want and what we need. We all know ourselves the best. When I was very young, 16, I chose to leave home and go to Singapore by myself. I had exceptionally supportive parents who allowed me to do that, but I made that decision. I chose to go to the US to study the biosciences, because at that time, there wasn't that much in India, and I really was fascinated by the biosciences. Again, a decision that I made. When I chose to leave doing research and being a scientist, one that was supported by my husband, to be a business consultant and try something completely new. So I guess at different points, right? You are the best judge of what you can do. So do so. Believe in yourself. And I think most of the battle will be won and everybody else will fall in place after that.
That's lovely. And you just talked about your spouse being your best friend. I think the best career judgment or the career decision women make is who they marry.
I agree. I would like to extend that a little bit.
Yeah.
Who they marry and which family they marry into. Right? For me, I've been super lucky to have an in-law support network that is even better. Sometimes I joke with my mother than what my parents give. And I think who you marry is the single most important decision.
That's so true. But it's also important that once you've gotten into that relationship, things might change and may not be. You know how men marry women thinking, oh God, I hope she never changes. And women marry the men thinking, oh, he's going to change. I'll change him. Hello, neither of them happens, right? So afterwards, when you have these challenges, that tenacity, that optimism and resilience that you need to be able to continue and keep the family with you as you go into the future of career, as you reinvent yourself, you reinvent a happy home as well. Don't you, Satya?
Yes, no, absolutely, Ranjini. Absolutely.
So I want to ask you a question. So did you hit some roadblocks at some point, and how did you manage, whether it's career or home, circumventing a roadblock, keeping your focus on the goal?
So with no roadblocks, life isn't any fun, right? It's just a monotonous long drive. So yes, absolutely, many, many roadblocks. Several come to mind. After I had my first child, it was a huge mindset shift for myself to get off the fast accelerated track to be there for my son in that first year. Or, after I've been in a role for a while, I'm not sure if I'm adding value anymore. So all of those tend to be roadblocks. And I think how I have gotten beyond those roadblocks, a couple of things come to mind. The first foremost is mentors. Connecting with people who you think are role models and who you want to learn from, right? For me, those are mentors because they tend to create the opportunities for you that actually will take you on a slightly different path.
Yes.
Right? And help you reinvent yourself. The second piece is around not being afraid to take risks. Yes, there is this fear of failure that holds us all back.
Yes. And
I think it is not easy to overcome, but it's okay to take those risks. And it's okay if it doesn't work out. And if you go and approach it saying, I'm going to do the best I can, and let's see how far I go, I think more often than not, we'll get farther than we think we get. And I think the third thing that at least has helped me when I have looked at an opportunity or a path that was different is to speak to others, get inputs. See, we view the world through one frame. Someone else views the world through the same world, through a different frame. And so being able to talk to them, understand what they see that you don't see, actually can help.
Just have two more quick comments. Satya, I just want to hear from you. How does one set smart goals? Because that's so important to take your career and your family along into the future.
Yeah. It depends though, Ranjini, on which life stage one is, right? I know that early on, I was in one high gear accelerated mode. And at that point, I took life in 2-year chunks. Set my goals where I wanted to be in 2 years, charted that path. And, every now and then you deviate from that path, but 2 years is a reasonable time frame. Midlife, post-children, I want a little bit more stability to be able to be there for them and play this dual role in a dual couple, right? Dual working couple marriage. And so I now take life in 3 to 5 year chunks.
Okay.
And I believe it's important to take that little bit longer time frame now because I want the stability. And more importantly, I'm actually at a phase in my professional life where I want to leave behind impact, right? So in any role I strongly believe that it takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months to actually get settled, to understand what your job is, what the role demands, what you're expected to do. Subsequently, another 12 to 18 months to show real impact. Yes. And it's that point where then you can start to say, all right, the job is done. What's next? And if you are lucky and you are able to create those opportunities, then great. If you're not, you figure something else out. But I think that's the way at least I think about my own personal and professional goals.
That's fantastic. Because we have many mentees in Champion Woman, young millennials, who are changing their jobs within just under a year even sometimes. Do you face that? Do you see that?
Yes.
And I always think you didn't give yourself a chance to succeed. And so I think your idea of even 2-year goals, even if you're in the early stage, and then 3 to 5 years in the later stage is a great idea. And goal setting isn't taught to us in school, college, or workplace. So really, I invite this entire audience to stay in touch with us because we teach goal setting as an actual topic in our classroom. And I think it's nothing we have to do. We have to catalyze you, and you have to come up with the goals that you are going to set for yourself. That's how we hope to work on this. So that's one thing. And the last question then for Satya is, if you had a chance to work with our working women's workforce today, and we only have 27% of college educated women in India's workforce.
Yes.
Your Mckinsey global report shows that. It also shows that I don't know how many 10 million jobs are going to be lost because of artificial intelligence.
And automation, yes.
And automation. But new jobs are going to be created, right, Satya?
Yeah.
So what would you tell the young women's workforce as a piece of advice?
Interesting. So when I reflect on the young women that I work with, I find them to be exceptionally daring, right? Nothing holds them back. Very unlike my own generation, and it's not that far off. And they know so much. They know so much. I find every conversation fascinating. This whole tech world is moving so fast and they know much more. I think, though, it is important to pause. It's important to pause every now and then to reflect, not be running in an accelerated way, because often we then miss things. We miss opportunities. We switch jobs too soon and we don't build depth. And therefore, I think my advice would be pause. And there are so many tools out there to help you pause. Today, we talked about the app, right? Pause a little bit, see a video, reflect, journal. I wish I had taken up journaling much earlier in my life. But I think that pausing allows us to run a marathon rather than the sprint.
Absolutely beautifully said, Satya.
Thank
I
you
do
too.
want to say to our YouTube viewers and to our Zoom viewers that we have this recording and we'll be answering everything that you asked or comments you've shared after this show is over. In case we're not able to do it during the show, we will be very happy to do it after. We've posted the link to the app on the chat box. And in the app, within the phone, there is a chat which is private only to people who download the Champion Woman app. Please put your comment there of how you enjoyed learning about Satya Sriram's journey of reinventing. And please write what else we can bring to you. And if you have questions, please post it in the chat of the Champion Woman app on Android. For Android phones, it's completely free on Google Play Store. The link is on the chat. So shall we call it a day? Satya, how can I thank you enough for giving your advice, not just advice, your life journey, painted it as a pen portrait for the rest of the world. Thank you so much. Please allow me to present to you both the app and the book.
Thank you so much, Ranjini. It's always a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you.
And we shall both work with all of you, everybody in the audience. Let's break the bias.
Break the bias.
Break the bias. Break the bias against yourself, against others, and break the bias in community conversations. Thank you very much.